panelists, we always start panels with the same first questions. First, of course, they'll say their name and where they work. They will say their first job and then the job that they are currently in, so we can learn a little bit about them. Stacy, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Stacy Ronzi. I know my name. Stacy Ronzi, and I'm with S&E Consulting, and we do property management and leasing. And my very first job was when I was 14. I worked for an insurance agent as an administrative assistant because the prior year, when I was 13, I taught myself how to type on a manual typewriter and then had to reteach myself on an IBM Selectrix because that's how old I am. So yeah, I started in insurance actually.
And what do you do now? Did you already say that?
I did.
Okay, great. How about Patty?
Hi there. For everyone I don't know, my name is Patty Hanley, and I am currently a buyer specialist with the Blue Pebble Group. So I represent buyers in residential transactions throughout the Denver area. And my first job, I don't even know if I really made it on the payroll because it was all of 6 weeks, but I was a stylist assistant at Mario Chikosi Salon in the town in Illinois that I grew up in. So
Wonderful.
Obviously was not able to pursue that after those 6 weeks.
Nice. Anne?
I'm Ann Winfrey. I am also on the Blue Pebble Group. I am the listing specialist, so I handle most of our listings. My very first job, I worked at a little makeup shop in Flatirons, and there was like lots of glitter. So that was like back when like glitter eyeshadow was like the thing. Didn't pursue that, and then first career I was a teacher, and then second career real estate agent.
Nice. I know what that's like, first career as a teacher. Okay, Shelby, you want to say hi real quick too so everyone knows who you are?
I will, yep. I'm Shelby. I'm also part of the Blue Pebble team. I'm the client relations manager, so I handle like day-to-day things. I do a lot of the social for our team, any of the events. That's me. So my first job, I don't know if it matters. I was an occupational health assistant, if you will. I don't really even remember what I did. Honestly, like the biggest memory was something with TB, so I like kind of block it out a lot. There was a lot of testing for that. I don't really know how I fell into that. Also went into oil and gas for a minute, and now I'm here in real estate. So
great.
Happy to be here, and thanks for having us. Yeah.
Okay. So the way this is going to work is I start with a softball question. What attracted you to the realty industry? And then we're going to get really into the meat of the questions. And the chat box is there so that you can add questions along the way. We will stop and address them, or I will add them onto a question I already have planned. So I have found, don't wait for the Q&A at the end because like I mentioned, my time management on these has not been great. So sometimes we don't end up with a ton of time at the end. So feel free to use that chat box and we'll get your questions answered. Okay, so we're just gonna start with what attracted you to the realty industry. It sounds like you started all over the map with first jobs and first careers. So Stacy, why don't you start with that one?
Sure. So I fell into property management because nobody ever wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to be a property manager. So I fell into that, and I wound up being a real estate agent in Virginia when I was there, and this is back in the 80s. And then I really liked property management a lot, much more so than the agent side. So I started doing that, and I really love doing property management. I've done it in just about every industry. The only thing I haven't done is market rate apartments, but I've done Section 8 government funded, I've done warehouse, I've done office, I've done retail, I've done HOA. So I have a nice broad swath of property management that I like. And I'm also kind of a architect wannabe, so.
That's awesome. Patty?
Well, my major was marketing, and to be honest, I was just looking for any entry-level position where I could pay my rent for Wrigleyville and not have to live at home with my parents. I graduated in 2008, so I wasn't really able to pursue any sales goals. But similar to Stacy, I was introduced to property management and started managing, started on a property management team for a Class A asset in River North of Chicago and neighborhood. So from there, my career just kind of snowballed and managed various assets throughout the city. And then when it came to Denver, was able to pursue those goals in sales. So have been with the Blue Pebble Group ever since.
Great. And Anne.
I was just telling my kiddo he could ride his bike out front and only out front so I can watch. Anyway, so what attracted me to real estate is that, like, I had the realization when my son was 1 year old and I was teaching that I would not be able to attend his first day of kindergarten because I would be doing a first day of school with other kids, and those kids deserved it, but my son also deserved it. So it sort of just kind of fell into place for me to move into real estate, and I ended up being a personal assistant for an agent for a couple of years and got a ton of experience doing that, and then found that I just kind of liked it and stuck with it.
Great. Okay. I'm going to come back to you, Patty, and we're going to start off by having you describe the trends the Denver realty market had been seeing over the last few years. I feel like Denver has been making headlines all over the country about this real estate market. We know that March changed things, but up until that point, how do you describe what was happening?
I would say from my experience in the Denver residential market, it's been very, very strong and consistent up until COVID. You know, there's masses of people consistently moving here in the city, which provides for strong demand, and the supply is low. So up until COVID, you know, it had been really consistent, and there hadn't been a lot of major barriers in the way from my experience.
Yeah. And do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would, you know, our market was fairly easy to predict because the patterns in it follow the same exact thing year over year. We start off really strongly, and it starts ramping up and about in February, holds really strong until about June, drops off, and then in August is when we really see that the market kind of bottom because people are going back to school. Then over the winter, it kind of, you know, goes up and down, stays pretty consistently, you know, fairly low as you can be in the Denver market, and then ramps back up the same year or the same time next year. So really, I mean, it's been pretty consistent, pretty easy to predict up until a couple of months ago.
I was actually surprised to hear that it started to get really hot in February. That was new to me. I guess I always assumed that like the summer was the time. So that was a new learning to me. We'll of course talk about after what happened in February in a little bit. Stacy,
so
how about you? Oh, go ahead, Ann.
Sorry. There's a fun little statistic with that. The Denver market tends to ramp up faster if the Broncos don't do as well in their season. So if the Broncos do really well, our peak happens probably about 4 weeks later than it normally would. So
interesting.
You know,
a little correlation.
Yes.
Maybe not causation, but okay. Interesting. Stacy, what about you?
So rental follows mostly the same all year long. It's pretty consistent. The thing that we found out in the last 10 years is that in the city of Denver, rents went up about 64%. And the farther you go north, the more that percentage changed. So up about North Lakewood and Wheat Ridge, that rental pricing in the last 10 years has increased 98%. So
wow.
Yeah, we've seen an incredible amount in the rental market, and the rental market has the same issue that for sale does, is that there's not enough stock. So we're still supply and demand. What happens after, we'll talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Meredith, great question. Asking for a clarification on when you say the market is strong, are you referring to prices being higher or potentially lower? who does it benefit, sellers or buyers, when you're talking about the market being strong? Anybody can jump in there.
It does mean that prices are consistently going up. Generally, it's give or take an average of 5% a year. That fluctuates month over month though. But yeah, it does mean that prices are rising for sellers.
And then does predictability have anything to do with saying the market is strong? I mean, I think knowing when things are going to be hot and when, like, being able to predict and consistency would make it
Well, also
strong.
it ties to the mortgage rates too that we were seeing this year. Their mortgage rates dipped very historically low, so the buyer pool grew immensely because of those rates. So there's strong competition, you know, with buyers there.
Yep, that's a good point too. Okay, great.
Investors also,
No, please.
Investors also, because the market money is cheap right now, they're also doing a lot of investing. So we're seeing that also.
Great. Katie, that's a great question, and we're going to get to that one. So hang tight. Okay, so when the stay-at-home orders went into place in mid-March, in what ways were you still able to serve clients, and in what ways had the work stopped? Stacy, how about you start?
So when the stay-at-home order took effect, we could no longer do in-person showings. So we can only do virtual showings. I'm sure Patty and Amy will talk about that as well. What we were able to do is we can still look and we can still see and we can still, you know, guesstimate when something's going to come available. So we could do that. But the other thing we did is we took a strong pivot and we decided to provide information for our clients and for those that we hope will be our clients. And we started doing 10-minute interviews with industry professionals and posting them on our website. So we talked to people around Denver who were in the mortgage industry, they were in the title commitment industry, they were in insurance, they were financial planners. So we tried to get the temperature of all these different industries on what was happening. And we feel like that was something that we could provide, even though we couldn't, you know, take anybody to see anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Patty?
Yeah, definitely. Everything went virtual, you know, open houses, and then not just a Matterport, but then an additional virtual tour video was almost expected just to get, you know, people the exposure to the home because they can't set foot in it. And then, so let's see what else. I would just say a lot of virtual. I mean, the communication actually increased, I think. Now, you know, between Zooms and texting and calls and just checking in with clients and making sure they're okay and their situation is okay. So it's been, you know, it's been a lot of virtual communication, but overall a lot more, which is great for us.
So if you were listed before the stay-at-home order, were most transactions able to complete, or did you see buyers walking? What happened there?
I would say a lot of people withdrew their listings because if they didn't want any tours or any guests in their home, which, you know, is completely understandable. Yeah. And then we had a listing on that we just kept it on, you know, we just let people check out our videos and tour virtually, and then after the stay-at-home was listed, you know, it went under contract shortly.
I'll jump in here actually too. It's funny, and also not being an agent, but being privy to what was going on. It was funny because 3 of our teammates actually were purchasing homes as this was going down. And so Anne is one of them, Jared, our team lead, and then also Matt, another buyer's agent on our team. And so what I was seeing, and what obviously Patty and Anne were seeing as well, is if your deal was past a certain point when all of this happened, it was easy to kind of get those to close out and finish. And then that first month or so, there was absolutely a lag in bringing on those new clients. And I think that was just the residual effect of COVID and kind of everyone being like, okay, how do we move online? How do we do this? And so that was there. We're now to where we're getting new clients again, which is nice, but that's, I think, what March mostly looked like.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. For most of our deals that were through a certain point, those we were able to bring to close. And ironically, they were 3 of our very own teammates. We're like, wait, aren't we supposed to be the experts here? And we're buying like during a national pandemic or a global pandemic, but it was just
Great.
kind of worked out. Yeah.
Well, when I
Anne?
spoke, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ann.
No, please go ahead, Stace.
When we spoke to the mortgage professionals and the title companies, what they said is they saw most everything, as you said, if it was past a certain point, or if they could get a drive-by appraisal, those things were closing as long as they were under the jumbo limit of 510. Anything over that, that money wasn't closing as easily. But everything else, they said, was still moving forward. A ton of refis. They said they were actually fairly busy, ironically. So.
Slammed.
Okay, Anne, go ahead.
Oh, I was just piggybacking off of what Stacy
Yeah.
said. Yeah, mortgage brokers were completely slammed because interest rates were so low. Yeah, they had a great season.
Ironically, yeah.
Yes, I mean, and we also had on the team, I think we had 3 or 4 properties, both buyers and sellers, go under contract sight unseen. I mean, I'm closing one on Thursday, and tomorrow is the first time that either of us will see the house. They saw their walkthrough with the inspection, but it'll be the first time they actually see it, and they're still closing. Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely to piggyback off of Stacy, where everything just pivoted, but everyone, like, people still need to move. People still need real estate.
Yeah.
They're going to find a way to make it work.
And I'm going to start with you on this one, on the next one. So now that the stay-at-home order has lifted, I know, showings are possible. There's still the limit on how many people can be in a home. What can buyers or sellers, what will they experience under this new, I don't know what Jared Polos is calling it, safer at home or
Safer at
something?
home, yeah.
Yeah.
There
Is it
are
back to the regular process, like you're going to experience pretty much all the same things, or have there been some changes?
Yeah, we're pretty much, we're back to the same sort of system of finding houses, going and looking at them, and then going through the process. There's so many regulations with showings that it's our job. We have to keep up on this, and we have a responsibility too to help walk our buyers through this. But checking our temperatures before we see buyers, before we go into houses, is one thing we have to do. We have to provide gloves if they don't have gloves, masks if they don't have masks. Shoe coverings should be in the homes. If not, our team has them. I mean, and then we can only have 3 people touring with us at a time. So with the agent and then a couple, which we can run into
people and it's only people who are on the contract. It's not, you can't bring your parents along or anything like that.
Exactly. And Patty, do you have anything to add to that? I know you've been out doing showings more than I have.
I would just say a lot of, the Lysol wipes. If you want to open a cabinet, you have your glove and the Lysol wipe and then pull it with that. So it's just a lot of keeping up of what you've touched and make sure you're not sitting on the furniture or, maybe opening the closet door like you would for another showing. So you just have to be cautious.
And some sellers are leaving things open. Like, that's my advice to people. We've got a pre-inspection for tomorrow, and they were like, what do we need to do? I'm like, just make sure there's a path to the furnace. Make sure there's a path to the water heater. Like, just make sure they can walk through and they don't have to touch stuff.
Nice. Okay. Stacy?
Yeah, I've got the same issues, or not issues, but I have the same obligations. And part of the obstacle that we had to overcome was who's responsible for making sure that it's all scrubbed down again when we leave. There was a huge discussion about whether listing agents or buyer's agents were responsible for making sure that it was done. And there was a big conversation last week about that with the city. And, we tried to make the point that, yes, we all need to be responsible, but asking the listing agent to come out after a showing with the buyer's agent to disinfect everything wasn't actually probably the way to go. So we're all trying to, navigate this the best we can while being respectful to everybody and making sure we're all safe. But we didn't get a ton of guidance for a lot of topics on this. Just because they don't do it for anything, no, for no other reason.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of industries experience some creative adjustments, changes, improvements, etc., because of the stay-at-home order. What do you see in the realty industry as creative adjustments, and what of those creative changes do you think or hope will stick around? Patty, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm kind of a clean freak, so I appreciate the level of sanitation and cleaning that, some public places have taken up. So I would love for that to continue if possible. And I also, I think people are being a lot more patient with each other right now. If there's a dog barking or a baby crying in the back of the Zoom or a conference call, there's not an eye roll or anything. People have to live their lives, and this is the situation we're in. So I think people have been a lot more open-minded and just patient with still getting things done, but in a different way.
Nice. Have you seen that patience in the negotiation process of prices as well?
Yeah, I think there's more flexibility just because of the unknown. Certainly with some sellers are more antsy to get their property sold and under contract versus if it were just a regular spring.
Right. Anne?
I completely agree with that. I do think we're being a little more patient with each other, and I think it's been really nice that, I think agents have always had a collective, let's work together to get these deals done, or at least a majority of us do. And I think that is really happening nowadays. And honestly, I enjoy it. I also enjoy being able to do a Zoom coffee with someone and maybe getting 2 of them done in the time that it would take me to do one, where driving to the coffee shop, waiting, getting the coffee, making conversation, driving to another one. No, you can just schedule them like this, and the productivity is skyrocketed.
Nice. Stacy, you want to add?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. We've been using electronic means to sign rental documents for a while, and I know that that'll continue. I'm hoping that we'll be able, it's doubtful, but I'm hoping we'll be able to keep some of the remote notaries that we've been using.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah, right. Since I'm also a notary, it's just made my job a ton easier if I can just hop on Zoom and record it, and everybody shows me their ID, and I can see that they're who they are. So I'm hopeful that that will continue, but we'll see. And yeah. I'm hoping that since we were able to close some things remotely as well, I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit more, we've always done it, I shouldn't say always, but we've done it via FedEx, but I'm hoping that there'll be a lot more Zoom closings just to make it easier for the buyers and sellers so they don't have to always be in the same place at the same time.
That's what I was going to add. I was able to sell a house in April, and we did a virtual closing. We got on Zoom, we showed our IDs to the notary, and it was great. And the fact that I could sign everything electronically, that was totally new from the previous time that I had done a house sale, or actually I was buying that time. So I hope those types of things continue. I know not every mortgage company was offering that. Our buyers actually had to go and sign documents, but our side, I was able to do it virtually, which I thought was great. Okay, Katie, we're at your question. So now I wrote this question as post-COVID. We're not post-COVID, but you know what I mean. We're post you have to stay home, can't leave your house situation. Are we in a buyer's or a seller's market here in Denver? Meaning, if I own a home, is now a good time to sell? If I wanted to find a new home, is now a good time to be looking? Stacy, how about you go first?
Well, I'm going to let these talk about listing and buying, but as it pertains to investment properties, yeah, now's a good time. Like I said before, money's cheap. So as long as the banks are willing to lend, I think now's a good time to find a decent property that you could turn, especially if you're a first-time investor. I think now would be a good time to maybe dabble in that market.
Great. Thanks for that perspective, Stacy. Patty?
I would say it really depends on your individual situation. So if you're wanting to sell and you have a lot in reserves or equity in the home and you have some room to wait, you want to see where prices go through the summer, you might want to wait it out. But if you are furloughed and you need to sell your home right now, it's not a bad time to sell. There's a lot of buyers out there. Rates are low for the buyers, and it's just Denver, like we said earlier, is a solid market where there's consistent flow of buyers, both buyers and sellers.
Okay. Anne?
I'd completely agree. We're still seeing multiple offers. We're still seeing places go over list price. I think we are being a little bit more careful with pricing, just knowing that if a listing is overpriced, then buyers will not, generally pre-COVID, won't offer less on it. They get scared away from the price. If it's too low, the price will come up and the market will correct it. So nowadays, though, we're being a little bit more careful with pricing, just because we know that if we overprice it just by even a little bit, people aren't even going to go look at it. They're not even going to put it on their list because we have all of these precautions. So we are still seeing multiple offers. We are still seeing lots of buyers out there. Things are going really well right now. So I think
I'm going to add on Katie's question, because I did not read it carefully enough, and it's just a little bit different. She wants to know, would you say it's more competitive at the moment for first-time buyers of primary residences or rental properties? Are you seeing one more than the other? Anybody can.
Yeah, typically in economic downturn, rentals go up just because people are unsure and they want to sell their assets. So I would think that the rental market is pretty competitive right now.
Yep.
And then you want to add, Stacey?
Nope.
Do you agree?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Sue has another question. What price range is the most opportune for investment buyers? Sue, are you asking like what amount of money do you need to come to the table with for an investment to be feasible in Denver, or?
More what types of price ranges for different kinds of properties, for example, condos or townhomes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The 350 to 500 market
Okay.
is and will always be the most competitive. After 500, after about 550, it tends to drop down just a little bit. And then as you get over 750, the competitiveness drops even farther. So 350 to 500 is definitely the highest. Single family homes will be more competitive than condos and townhomes. However, with the condo, it depends on where it is. So if it's a condo out in, no offense, Aurora, it's not going to be as competitive unless the price is perfect than a condo downtown.
Okay.
And with townhomes, it's basically the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Now regarding the rental side of realty, Patty, you sort of just touched on this, but Denver has been known for rising rental prices. What do you think renters in Denver should be aware of or on the lookout for? Are things going to change for the rental market, or are we going to see pretty high prices going forward?
Well, I would say for rental, they may continue to either, stay where they are or rise, just because the rental market does get more competitive when people are having financial restrictions. So if you are looking to rent, I would really, first and foremost, you can reach out to any of us. We have great access to some tools that compare rents throughout different neighborhoods and that sort of thing. But then also, if you are really interested in a place and you're worried it's over market, try talking to a neighbor or ask any of your friends if they've ever lived in that area. Or I constantly tell clients to just drive by at different times of the day and see what traffic is like or the noise level is like, so you get more of a feel for it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't see the prices really going down unless if we have a second wave and we have to shut down again, it's possible that will happen. So that's kind of out there. During COVID, there's been a freeze on evictions unless it's for a life, health, safety reason. So there is non-payment of rent going on in some places, not many, but in some. And the key is to have the renter and the owner work together, or in my case, the property manager and the renter work together to make sure that we can still maintain the integrity of the lease and have them come out the other side, because their obligation is not, or they still have an obligation to pay, but they can work with the property manager or the owner and ask them if they'd be willing to either extend their contract or do a little payout or do some type of balloon payment. So there's options out there, but I think that the rent itself will still continue to, like you said, Patty, stay steady or go up, because it's going to be a supply and demand issue again.
Anne, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't.
Okay, Katie has been really good at predicting all of my questions. Katie just asked about condos, and that's what my next question is about. So in 2017, there was a statewide law that was changed to make, I'm way oversimplifying this, but this is how I understand it. So y'all can correct me, panelists, but this is my understanding. The statewide law was changed to make suing developers of condos a little bit harder. So the previous law was a pretty low bar. And that made developers pretty weary of building or converting to condos. If I'm interested in purchasing a condo, what should I be asking or what should I be aware of, either for my own personal home or for a rental property? And Katie's asking, is there a general rule in terms of what's a decent HOA on a condo? Is it percentage of property value, for example? That was a lot. Condos.
Depends. Yeah, on condos it really depends, because it depends on the amenities that you have as to how much you're going to wind up paying for that. If I can, I'm actually going to ask my partner. She does HOA property management. So Elizabeth, do you have anything to add on that? I've got a couple of thoughts, but I have some questions that I would definitely ask about assessments and budgets and all that kind of stuff. But do you want to just kind of like chime in a little bit on the HOA side?
Sure. You definitely would want to read all of the documents that are provided under the Colorado real estate contract. And even if you don't completely understand them, absolutely read them. Read things about collection policies, read about move-ins, read about rental caps. The long-term average HOA dues in lower downtown is been hanging out between $3.50 a square foot and $4 a square foot. And those are for buildings that don't have amenities, just to give you a ballpark. But you want to find out who the management company is. Look for reviews on the management company, because that absolutely affects your experience as an owner within a condominium association. As owning a management company, I can tell you there's a wide variety of management companies and how they work and how they do things. And yeah, so Stacy, I think that's probably what you were looking for there.
Yeah. Yeah, those are everything that, and you also want to ask about assessments. Have they been discussing a special assessments, or are they having a special assessment coming soon? Because that does make a difference. Whether you're buying it for your homestead or you're buying it for an investment property, that's going to have an impact on what you're doing.
Can you say what you mean by assessments?
Assessment.
Sorry.
So for example, if you live in a condo and there's some, let's say your courtyard needs to be replaced. And the reason I go there is because that's what we're about to do, but we're not having an assessment. We need to replace our courtyard, and that's a $200,000 project. Well, we have some money in the bank and you cannot deplete your reserves. So we have to borrow some money as well as pay some money to have this project done. The other way we could have done it is taken the about $200,000 price tag, divided it up as our decks require, for each individual unit, and have everybody pay a lump sum towards that. So you don't want to get caught buying a condo and then, you know, a month later having to pay a $10,000 assessment, or worse yet, a $40,000 assessment. So you definitely want to ask that question, and you need to phrase it, have you been discussing one, not just has one been approved? And if you can talk to one of the board members, I'd highly, highly encourage that as well.
All right, Ann or Patty, you want to add about condos?
I would just say if you go under contract with the condo, it's standard to get their HOA, their association's financials, their budget, their reserves, and that sort of thing. So I would really review that with your broker and make sure it all looks okay before you get any further.
And that's what I was I was going to say too, is that when you get all of that, read through the minutes very carefully, because that's where you will start to see the first indications of assessments coming on.
You're saying minutes of like meetings, HOA
yeah,
meetings?
they're meeting minutes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great.
And then I was going to see too, is there any way I can call, like, Jared, is there anything that you want to add with that? Is that okay if I call on him?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll be brief. I think your panelists did a great job. Stacey and Patty definitely covered the major things. I also think there's going to be a difference if you're buying a newer condo or an older condo in town, especially if you're buying new. The law that was changed, there was a Supreme Court case rather, but that deals with really construction defects, and most developers have gotten around or have dealt with that by getting, I'd say, very interesting, very complicated insurance policies, right? And so depending on who those developers are, how they've structured their insurance, who the subs are, and what they've done, a lot of people assume that if there's a construction defect issue on one of these newer condos, it's going to get taken care of, but that's definitely not the case. Not all these developers are well capitalized to defend themselves in the event of a lawsuit. The only other thing that I would say is check insurance policies on older buildings as well. Something that we run into is, in addition to some reserve problems we're seeing, where I think that's going to be an issue in the next 6 to 12 months, some of these older buildings, in order to save money on HOA dues, have not been insuring themselves properly. And so there are some roofs and some facades that are going to have some major assessments, and they don't even know about it yet. But you would know if you asked for the insurance policy and whether or not that policy covered different types of damage. And so those are two things that I would say. You can just ask a very simple question about, what are the insurance policies? Please send us a copy. Those may or may not be covered as part of your HOA documents unless you make an express request for them.
Right.
Great.
And
Thanks, Jared.
And Jared, you're absolutely right. We could do a whole nother panel on insurance and construction defect and all that kind of stuff. But you want to work with more than your State Farm agent or your yeah, Jared's nodding. I mean, State Farm's great. I have State Farm, but you also need to work with another agent. We have a fantastic agent that works with us about looking at the insurance that the HOAs have and what kind of deductibles they have, because now we're not seeing those $200,000 deductibles for wind and hail anymore. We're seeing 1% or 5% even of the building's valuation. So the owners can get stuck with a really high deductible if there's some damage on the roof. So that's a whole nother panel probably.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to throw names. I'm trying to be clear about examples of this. One building I know without causing alarm or anything, they've experienced this over the last several years, is 888 Logan. So if anyone's familiar with that building or kind of what they're dealing with respect to their insurance claims, it's really messy. So you just want to avoid it. And you can, as Stacey said, you can get through that with a really good insurance agent in one question.
And
So-
one more quick thing. Well, it's important while you're touring, pay attention. Is the carpet in the lobby clean? Is there paint chipping? Is the grounds, is the trash can overflowing? The little things so you can see if the HOA is really using those funds to manage appropriately.
Right. It just begets other questions, like how often do they clean, things like that. So yeah.
Okay, so buying a condo sounds scary.
Mm-mm.
Is that what I should be what I should be feeling?
No,
No.
No,
because
Okay,
all
just
four of us can help you with that.
Okay, so just
There's-
additional.
There's just more boxes,
Yes.
just more due diligence because you are one unit and one, large building. So it's not like you're buying a single family where there's only a few boxes to check with your inspections and insurance.
If you're working with someone, if you're going to work with someone and you want to buy a condo, make sure you're working with an agent that has experience with condos. As my partner is shaking her head. You really have to work with somebody that really knows what they're doing because there are so many more boxes to check than there are if you're buying single family. How the condo relates to the condo association as a whole is, like I said, we could do a whole nother panel on condos just themselves.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I'm actually working on a class to give to the Denver Metro Association of Realtors because you would be surprised how many realtors do not understand that product. And they won't ask the right questions for you. So I would make sure your agent really does understand the condominium product before working with them. It's a constant issue in my office of us educating realtors because they don't know.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm going to add a question because of that to our panelists. So let's say I want to buy or sell condo, home, or a rental property, and I need maybe help. What is the number one question I should be asking to figure out? There's so many people out there who claim to be really good at this. What do I ask? How do I know this person is qualified? How do I know that they know anything about condos? Whoever wants to start.
Go ahead, Anne.
I think asking about their experience with condos, seeing what they have, what they've sold, what if they're on a team, if anyone on the team has had experience with it. I mean, yes, I'm an advocate for people like getting their start somewhere, but with something like this, you've got to find someone who has done them before and has a proven amount of business while doing a condo. And the good thing is that, I mean, people do, like, there's so many condos. It's not scary to find one of them, but you do have to vet it out a little bit. And there's enough real estate agents that you're able to do that in Denver.
Like Anne said, I would really ask for the broker's experience and what they've transacted. If you're concerned about condos, how many they've done or their most recent and what building. So I would, and then also online reviews. We all have online reviews these days. So I think those are helpful. Just check them out that way. Look up their LinkedIn. So I would interview, we act as it's a job interview. You're looking to hire us. So, ask those questions.
Thank you so much for saying that. I'll come to you in a second, Stacy. I guess I just thought that all realtors were the same. I didn't know. I mean, I was new to the whole process. I had no idea. The fact is you can and should interview multiple. And I just want to put that out. Maybe everyone on this call already knew that, but that was a huge takeaway for me. And I'm really glad that it was probably Patty who told me to do that. Stacy, do you want to add?
Condos are a great investment as well as a great place to live. You just have to know what you're getting into. And just like everything else, you want to work with someone that has a core competency in that. Have they served on a board, an HOA board, which is different than other boards? Have they lived in a condo? How many have they done? Do they know a lot of people in the industry? Just because someone hasn't done a ton of condos doesn't necessarily mean that they don't know what they're doing. It just means that that's not what they've done. But yeah, real estate's really, I hate to say niche-y, but it can be niche-y. Getting a condo in Lodo as vice getting a condo in Aurora, those are completely different markets with completely different declarations and completely different rules.
Okay.
And going for what Sherry just said in the comments is ask current owners. I mean, a lot of times there's an agent who has their niche in that building. Like I listed one in Lincoln Park earlier this year and ended up like my buyers bought from the same agent who then bought the condo from us when we sold it, if that makes sense. And she's super nice. And I like used to call her up and be like, hey, like I think I need some help, or like I have this question or whatever. And she's like, yeah, totally, I'll help you. You know, she's got the farm in that condo building. It's not going anywhere, but it was just nice to at least have that as a resource. And you
Also,
know,
some of the buildings have their own Facebook groups and whatnot. You can even look
Yes.
at and look at the tenants' feedback. I know that there's some on Yelp as well.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, but you do have to be careful. I shouldn't say a lot. There are a significant number of owners and renters who don't understand how condos work, and a lot of the negative reviews come from the fact that they don't understand how condos work, and they get the no answer a lot for something that they want to do, and they're just mad. So
Right.
you have to kind of parse through those a little bit. But yeah, that's definitely a way to do it for sure.
Stacey has a tougher job because we get the tenants there, and then she has to make sure they're happy when they stay there.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I did save a few minutes. I know a lot of you were dropping questions in the chat, but if you have specific questions, now would be a great time to ask, and then we'll just end with a final word from everybody and how people can contact you if they want to. So any questions from the audience? Okay, Jared has a question.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. Yeah,
Stacey,
so
if you were looking to be investing in property, where would you be looking now?
still in the downtown area. It's, you know, there's still a lot of deals to be had here. There are some in Aurora. You could go north, but it's not as popular. Yeah, I think it's still the downtown area and, you know, the surrounding areas as well, right? So all the way out to City Park and even up by Park Hill. There's still some really good deals to be had.
I would agree. Capitol Hill, all of those little areas, places where rent is, or where the sales price is at a place where the rent that you're asking for is still beneficial.
Correct.
Nice. Katie's asking, what would you say is a reasonable starting budget to purchase a rental property in the Denver area?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that's such a, yeah, go ahead, Patty.
I guess I was going to start at 250, saying you might be able to find something in that price range if you're looking, you know, to stay on the lower end. It is a hard question to ask.
It is,
without
because
knowing
it's
an individual situation.
Right.
Yeah, it all depends on like how much you have to put down. If you know, you have $100,000 to put down and you're buying a $400,000 place, and you know, then you only, it makes your mortgage $300,000, and then you know, you're paying about $1,800 a month, and depending on your interest rate, and then $2,000 a month might be a really good rental price that you're charging for that. It really is like, you've got to figure out all of those little boxes before that. If you get too low down into, I totally agree, Patty, like the 250 range, but that might also come with multiple offers, with multiple people doing the exact same thing that you're doing. It's just, it's all, yeah.
Well, yeah, you also have to decide, you know, if you're going to look for something in that 250 range, are you willing to put a little bit of money into it because it probably
Right.
hasn't been updated. You know, you want to kind of, if it was built in the 70s and it hasn't been touched, you might want to get rid of some of the sculpted carpet and some of the mirrors. You know, nothing big ticket necessarily, but you do want to do that. And it's great that you guys asked that question, because Elizabeth and I are going to be doing a seminar at Rise about first-time investors, and more specifically women who want to be first-time real estate investors. So keep your eye open for that.
Nice. Sherry also mentioned, which is a great point. Thanks, Sherry. You can talk to your financial planner, who's also a CPA, which is Sherry, but they can run financial models on what that would look like based on, you know, what money you're putting down, what your mortgage payment would be, and what you could charge for rent. So
Yeah.
you should totally talk to them about that.
Absolutely.
And then Meredith asks, as a first-time home buyer, what is the minimum someone could put down?
I believe it's 3%.
If it's FHA, it's 3%, I believe.
Right.
If it's conventional, 5%.
And if it's VA, 0%.
Can you say what VA means?
Sorry, yeah, it's a veteran loan. So if you've been in the military, they can do 0%, but otherwise FHA is 3% down.
Right. And you do have to know if you're only putting 3 or 5% down, you're going to have to pay private mortgage insurance on top of your of payment. So you have to kind of put that inside your budget too, which is why you talk to your CPA and your CFP to make sure that that's all going to work for you.
Nice. Okay, it's time for the final word. Anything that you were preparing to answer but nobody has asked, or something you want to underscore to our audience? I will let you guys go in the order you would like. So if anyone's ready to go, please share.
I have just a little tiny one, and then I'll say bye. Especially not being an agent on this team, the biggest takeaway I've had since August and I've joined is you might think you want to move, you know, in fall or whatever, and you really have to start the process so much sooner than you think. That's the biggest thing I've learned. It's like, oh, they don't want to move, you know, until the kids are back in school, blah, blah. And it's like, you needed to start looking and start talking to someone, you know, in February for that. So that's my bigger thing. If it's even like a little bit of a hint in your mind, go ahead and take those first steps, reach out, start interviewing those different realtors and seeing who's going to be a good fit, because it does move quicker than you think. So that's mine.
That's a great point.
And to piggyback off of that with Shelby, I always say it's the biggest purchase most likely you'll ever make in your life. So why would you not want to shop longer? And why would you want to feel rushed in that? So,
Great.
And also my job is, you know, to help you along the way. So for buyer's agents, especially, you should always hire a buyer agent, because that commission doesn't even come out of your pocket. So it's just, you know, professional advice, and you should really take advantage of it, because if you're going to fix something, if your sink is leaking, I wouldn't look on YouTube to fix it. I would hire a plumber.
Right.
So don't Google or just rely on Zillow is what I'm saying. That's my takeaway.
I like it.
And
I don't know. I was just trying to think of a takeaway. I mean, I do worry a little bit that we left this sounding a little scary with, you know, the state of everything right now. But just to, I don't know, you know, being someone who bought a house during this whole time, and then also who, you know, just helps people sell their own, it really does feel a lot more positive and less scary than I think we portrayed. Things are still moving in a very positive direction, and that are still benefiting both buyers and sellers. It's not just this great party for sellers and buyers are, you know, like
Fighting
suffering.
each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's really excellent deals happening on both sides.
there are.
Great.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. You know, absolutely. And, you know, it's still a good time to buy. It's still a good time to sell. It's still a good time to invest. Yes, there's, you know, things that you should know, but that's why you come to professionals, right? You come to somebody with a core competency. Now we can't, I mean, I could, but my core competency really isn't plumbing. But I can certainly help you with questions that you have about rentals and investment property and things like that, as can most agents. So just ask the questions. No questions are too dumb. As a matter of fact, you know, we're always happy to answer any questions that anybody has, even if we're not actually going to be working with you. You know, part of our responsibility is to make sure that the consumer is protected, and we all do that. So please feel free to call us and ask us. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Stacy, how do people get in contact with you if they would like to?
If you would like to contact me, you can email me at stacey@seconsultingco.com. And on our website at seconsultingco.com, you can actually link right to me there. And we have a whole bunch of videos from the industry professionals that we've kind of touched on almost everybody in this conversation. So if you just want to hear, a 7-minute, blip about what's happening in that industry right now, you can just go there and look on the news page and you can find it.
Nice. And how does anyone get in touch with Blue Pebble Group?
Let's see. I will put our email. I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. I was just typing our emails into the group chat, and then that way you can. And I'll do all 3 of ours, guys.
Great.
That way you can email us, and then yeah, But yeah, like Stacy said, we're here for answers.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here to shed some light on what's going on.
Oh,
Patty, you have something to add?
Oh, I was just saying we love to talk about real estate. So.
We do.
Okay.
And hopefully once Rise is back up and running, I mean, like Stacy said, there's no strings attached. If you have a question, we're friends first, by all means, we'll help you out. And
Nice. Thank you.
Great, yeah.
Well, have a great week, everybody. We're getting some nicer weather coming our way, and I hope you all come visit as soon as you feel safe to be here. Have a wonderful week, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Have a great day.
Fun.
Bye.